From totally losing it on the radio to pure frustration like this.
I've been good for one part of the race, but when it matters
We've seen Leclerc struggle more times than not during these past few seasons. Have you seen all of them? I doubt it, but let's take a look. To kick things off, let's go back to the 2021 Hungarian GP. 2020 had been one of Ferrari's roughest seasons.
Brakes failed.
But they stepped it back up in 2021, even though Red Bull and Mercedes were still far, far in front. By the time they hit the Hungaroring, Sainz and Leclerc each had just one podium finish. Leclerc had scored his at Silverstone the week before and wanted to keep that momentum going. However, things got tricky right from qualifying.
Leclerc goes second fastest overall. And that is Carlos Sainz at the final corner into the barrier.
Leclerc ends up in the 7th place. A decent finish with all the Ferrari woes today at Budapest.
Welcome along for the 36th Formula One World Championship Hungarian Grand Prix.
On Sunday, it rained a bit before the race, so the track was still kinda wet, and everyone put on intermediates. Because of that, a podium for Leclerc seemed like a true possibility again, though it was definitely gonna be tricky. But with the likes of Stroll, Latifi, or the King himself coming up behind you in those conditions, I seriously doubt anyone at the front was feeling relaxed.
Are you ready for some action then? All the talking stops right now. It's lights out, away we go. There goes Lando Norris down the inside.
When the lights went out, Leclerc had a decent start, quickly moved to the inside to grab a few positions. But my suspicions were right, someone else thought about going inside too.
It's Norris! And Norris hits Verstappen!
Perez gets caught up in all of that as well.
Mate, what the happened there?
None other than Mr. Strulovic, and obviously with no intention of braking. With all the chaos at the start, Stroll's move almost went unnoticed, to be honest. And after that huge hit from Stroll, it was a miracle Leclerc was still going, but not for long, as his car was totally wrecked, and Leclerc couldn't hide his anger.
Oh, they me!
And that piece he pulled out of the seat, what the is that? Meanwhile, Stroll...
Just completely.
After getting out of the car, Leclerc was still angry.
I was in my corner and just Lance drove into me in the middle of the corner coming out from nowhere. I went quite easy at the beginning to just try and stay in my position and make our race later on, and then to finish like this is just...
And Stroll didn't even know what to say.
Yeah, it was just really tricky, very slippery, and I tried to avoid the cars in front of me, and it just was a disaster.
Yeah, that's exactly what he didn't do. But that tantrum was nothing compared to what happened that same year in Austria, where we saw Leclerc completely lose his shit. After an absolutely terrible qualifying, only managing P12 right behind Sainz, we knew it was going to be a tough race for both.
It's the Austrian Grand Prix here at the Red Bull Ring, and it's lights out and away we go.
At the start, Leclerc completely got ahead of Sainz, right behind both Astons.
So Norris, there goes Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel having a good old scrap through turn 6.
Then an early safety car paused the race until lap 4.
And we've got a safety car as everything now slows down.
And on the restart, with all cars bunched up, Norris and Perez had this absolutely epic battle.
Oh, and they almost touch as Perez has to go wide, and now he's got the upper hand as they make their way towards turn 3.
Which ended like this.
Sergio Perez now, turn 4, trying to go the long way, round the outside. His duel continues with Lando Norris as he now goes onto the gravel, and he loses 6 or 7 places as a result of that.
He pushed me off.
Just right in front of Leclerc. Obviously, Norris got a 5-second penalty for forcing him off track. But even though the Red Bull was faster, Leclerc held him off lap after lap, and they were neck and neck the whole race until lap 41, when Charles went for the outside.
Is he going to try and make a move round the outside at turn 4? Here he comes. You can see the Scarlet Ferrari, and they touch, and this time it's Leclerc that goes off into the gravel. Banging wheels, Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc has lost out big time.
Leclerc, of course, was not happy at all.
What the you've raced my car.
It honestly seemed like Perez just wanted everyone else to get a taste of what Norris did to him earlier, but it wasn't the smartest decision. Same move, same penalty, of course. But that wasn't it. 6 laps later, Leclerc got close again, trying to finally get past him. This time, he was a bit more careful into turn 4, but then, right after...
Round the outside goes Charles Leclerc. You don't overtake there around the outside, and that's why Leclerc goes off into the gravel, and for the second time, trying to overtake Sergio Perez.
What the hell was going on with Perez? At this point, Leclerc just lost it.
Come on, this guy's... Get out of the way!
And when Perez seemed to be racking up more penalties than points that race, Leclerc just couldn't keep up and had to settle for 8th.
Perez is a joke. A joke. Come on, a 10 seconds penalty. He so finishes in front, putting us twice off track. What a power race.
While the Mexican finished 5th, but eventually got bumped down to 6th. After the race, Perez actually apologized to Leclerc.
It was a disaster, my race, first with Lando. I think it wasn't fair racing there. He was lucky not to have any damage, but next time can be different, you know. But anyway, my race was ruined after that. And with Charles, I'm extremely sorry because that's not the way I like to be racing.
Yeah, glad he cleared that one up, because his driving that day reminded me of someone else.
Oh my God, it's Pastor Maldonado.
Meanwhile, Leclerc, now a bit calmer, explained it like this.
It's been very frustrating in the car because I felt like I had a lot more pace, but I couldn't use it. Every time I saw an opportunity, there were very few opportunities because we were a DRS train, but every time I saw an opportunity, I tried to go for it, and twice I didn't have enough space on the exit of the corner, but it's life.
I get being angry when a rival messes up your race, but what do you do when it's your own team? That's exactly what happened to Leclerc in Monaco 22. I think we can all agree that everyone was pumped when he won his home race in 2024.
Grandstands he saw built as a kid growing up now rise for him, and for the first time in 93 years, this fabled race is won by one of their own. Charles Leclerc wins the Monaco Grand Prix to achieve his dream.
Especially with all that bad luck he's had until now. And I mean really bad luck.
Here, and he can't stop, and he has gone straight on. Charles Leclerc is out of qualifying. Oh, that one didn't work. Charles Leclerc retires from his home race. Oh, Charles Leclerc, the man on pole, has gone into the barriers. The glory for Charles Leclerc has completely disappeared. It's despair.
Honestly, it truly felt like he had a curse in Monaco, and 2022 was no exception, of course, even though it couldn't have started off any better.
And Charles Leclerc has grabbed pole.
Just amazing. With how narrow and twisty Monaco is, getting pole pretty much guarantees you the win, right? But having your teammate right behind you, that's theoretically even better. Ferrari could use that to help Leclerc snag an easy win. They had to really put in the effort to mess up and lose that win. But oh god, did they find a creative way to do that on Sunday.
The rain's coming down a little bit more now as well. We are seeing a little patter of rain out on the track. This is going to be a real challenge at the start, isn't it?
This is 2022, so with those conditions, it meant a safety car start. Just to give you an idea of how tricky the conditions were, even the Ghost was struggling to drive behind the safety car.
That is Nicholas Latifi down at the Lowe's hairpin.
Gate on, the car just didn't turn.
And hitting the barriers as well, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin.
And even they were crashing while going so slow. What was going to happen to the rest? Anyway, after a while, the race got back underway, with everyone on wet tyres. The two Ferraris were still first and second, closely followed by Perez and Max, and the track was starting to dry, fast actually. It was then on lap 17 that Perez pitted for Inters, which got everyone else to follow. Ferrari called their drivers in a lap later, and Red Bull called Verstappen in as well. And while Leclerc followed the team's instructions, Sainz, who knew what was up, decided to be his own strategist and refused to pit to stretch his stint on wet and switch straight to slicks later.
Push in lap, the Perez in for Inters, push in lap.
Not sure it's the right call, it's nearly ready for dry, yeah?
Okay,
Nearly ready for
come back to you.
I don't think it's the right thing to do.
By lap 22, the track was pretty much dry, so Sainz pitted for slits, and Ferrari called Leclerc in to pit again. And that's when this absolute clown show happened.
And box now, box now, box for hard. Stay out, stay out, stay out.
Multifunction tire position 5. Multifunction tire position 5.
Leclerc couldn't believe it. Pure anger and frustration, knowing your team just ruined your entire weekend. One wrong decision and your podium is gone. What were Ferrari's engineers even thinking during that race? No wonder Sainz didn't trust them. One lap later, both Red Bulls made their pit stops, and unlike Ferrari, they nailed it.
Is he going to retain the lead? It's looking promising. There you can see the Ferrari heading down of Carlos Sainz, just going through Saint-Amand, but Perez has come out comfortably in front of him.
The result, Perez came in first, Sainz second, and Verstappen third. Leclerc, meanwhile, dropped down to fourth. It was enough to make you want to pull your hair out. And obviously, with how tricky it is to overtake in Monaco, Ferrari's hopes, especially Leclerc's, were crushed. Even though the four of them were incredibly close until the end, no one could overtake.
Victory in Monaco goes to Sergio Perez for Red Bull. He wins with Carlos Sainz in second, Max Verstappen in third, and Charles Leclerc finishes a Grand Prix at home for the first time, but he will be bitterly disappointed having led the early stages.
Leclerc was completely shattered.
And P4.
No words. No words. Aye. Season is long, but we cannot do that. We cannot do that.
And he didn't even try to hide his frustration after the race.
It's a freaking disaster today. The win was clearly in our hands. We had the performance, we had everything. I just don't really understand the call that I've had, and I need explanations for now. I couldn't do much. I was called just before the last corner, so couldn't react or ask for any information. But that was clearly the wrong choice. So. Yeah, we need to get better.
I think from that day on, he learned to be a bit more like Sainz and start making his own strategy. Ferrari became the first team to lock out the front row in Monaco and not win since Ferrari in 2008. And when it isn't the ridiculous strategy choices, it's the Italian reliability. Cue the French GP in 2022. After a beautiful win in Austria, Leclerc was 38 points behind Verstappen when they got to Paul Ricard. With so many races still to be raced, the championship was more alive than ever, despite Ferrari's attempts at self-sabotage. In qualifying, it was clear that Ferrari definitely had a championship-winning car, with Leclerc grabbing pole, followed by both Red Bulls. On Sunday, a big showdown between Verstappen and Leclerc was expected, and that's exactly what went down.
Is it going to be Verstappen or Leclerc that gets away the best? It's lights out and away we go. And Leclerc reacts very well, but Verstappen always ready alongside him. Here into turn one we go. Charles Leclerc ahead of Verstappen. Here comes Max Verstappen on Charles Leclerc. There's barely a few car lengths in it. Into Le Beauce we go. Verstappen's going to look round the outsides. Ferrari hoping that they can get Red Bull in the corners. Red Bull hoping that they've got the pace down the straight.
Well, at least for the first few laps, because everything changed on lap 18.
Who's that gone off?
It's Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc is out of the race. And for the third time this season, Charles Leclerc, when leading a race, won't go on to finish it.
It looked like a massive mistake by Leclerc, where he lost the rear or something while entering the corner, and there was nothing he could do. But on the radio, it sounded like it was something different.
Are you okay?
I cannot come throttle.
And right after that...
Now it's 0%.
Have you ever heard a more heartbreaking scream? After that, Leclerc was clearly really pissed off. He was just broken. Verstappen ended up winning.
Max Verstappen started on the front row, sees the checkered flag for the second year in a row, wins the French Grand Prix!
Leaving Leclerc 63 points behind the Dutchman, which was a pretty big gap. Even though there was still a lot of races left, it made things so much harder. Max had just increased his lead by another 25 points. Oh, and in that race, Sainz ignored Ferrari again.
Sainz is trying everything!
Box, Carlos, box. Confirm.
Oh, why were they telling him to pit right then? Were they not watching the action?
Doing his own strategy and jumping from 19th to 5th. The team was just a total circus. It looked like the cause of Leclerc's accident was a throttle issue, which he also had in the last laps in Austria. Still, the Monegasque took the blame himself, owning up to the mistake.
It's my fault, and if I keep doing mistakes like this, then I deserve to not win the championship. So the level is very high this year. I'm performing at a high level, but if I keep doing those mistakes, then it's pointless to be at a high level.
Honestly, it felt a bit like Vettel's crash in Germany in 2018.
Sebastian Vettel! He has been leading almost from start to finish, but now is out of this race!
Both Leclerc and Vettel know what it's like to have a competitive Ferrari, but they also know what it's like to have a really bad one. When they were teammates back in 2020, no matter what they did, the car just didn't have it. In fact, it was only the 6th best car on the grid, making it one of Ferrari's worst cars ever. Leclerc snagged 2 podiums early on in Austria and Silverstone, but it was just an illusion. That car was barely even fighting for points. That year, Turkey was back on the calendar. Everyone was stoked to race in Istanbul again, but Ferrari kept their trend with another terrible qualifier. Not even the rain could help them. They were starting 11th and 12th. But hey, at least they should be able to get some points on Sunday, right? By the way, somehow, none other than Mr. Strulovic snagged pole. What a weekend. On Sunday, it was still pouring down, and at the start, the Ferraris took advantage of the chaos to gain a few spots. Vettel actually had a fantastic start, jumping up to 4th. With the track conditions so tricky, plenty of drivers were messing up, and he snagged another position after this. Meanwhile, Stroll was still somehow 1st, and Perez 2nd. Perez in a racing point, not a Red Bull. Wild. Meanwhile, Leclerc was stuck down in 14th. As the laps went on, Vettel started losing pace, getting passed by both Red Bulls, while Leclerc was climbing back up into the points. And while a lot of drivers were making mistakes, the Ferraris kept it steady, and by lap 40, they found themselves on track battling with other cars, with Vettel in 4th and Leclerc in 5th. Leclerc had more pace than Vettel, and just a lap later,
Charles Leclerc is now ahead of Sebastian Vettel.
Shortly after, both overtook Verstappen, who was having some issues with his car. Ahead of them was still Perez in 2nd and Hamilton, who had been the most consistent throughout the race, making no mistakes whatsoever. Stroll, on the other hand,
So Stroll has pitted there for a 2nd time and is now behind Max Verstappen.
well, for once, to be fair, it wasn't his fault. It was the team's decision to get him to do an extra pit stop for some reason. But anyways, back to Charlie. He kept closing in on Perez and finally caught him on the very last lap. In the final chicane, Leclerc went for the inside to overtake him.
Charles Leclerc locks up on Sergio Perez. He was trying a move to get 2nd place in this race. Perez comes back at him. Sebastian Vettel comes back at Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez, for the 3rd time in his Formula 1 career, can see the checkered flag and takes 2nd place in a race.
He lost the podium at the very last moment. Given how rough that year had been, it was actually a decent result for the team, but Leclerc definitely wasn't happy.
P4, slow button on. You did a good job. Really good.
Oh, I did a job. I did a job. I did a job. I did a job. That's it. I did a job.
Even Binotto couldn't calm him down.
What the?
And to top it off, he switched to Italian to let it all out.
Okay. Sono un coglione, sono un coglione, sono un coglione, sono un coglione. Non bene così, sono un coglione.
And he just kept insulting himself. He was totally losing it at that moment. What do you even say to him if you're his race engineer? And he was still fuming after the race.
Yeah, I f***ed up in the last corner. Nothing to say. I mean, in the last 3 corners. So at the end result counts. I've been good for one part of the race, but when it matters, and that's it.
But that's just Formula 1. Some days you're on top, and other days you're down. And it's hard not to lose it sometimes, especially when things go wrong, or your team messes up. Just ask Max. Let's just say he's had his fair share of moments. If you haven't already, make sure to check him out. And as always, thank you for watching.